So now, religionists, we have come to the end of our journey. We've been through China and India and Europe. We've looked at the tribal religions that are global and the religions of ancient city-states that are also found along those famous rivers we looked at in our first unit. So that brings us to science. And what is exactly science? Uh, we can think about science, and many will connect it with atheism or agnostic views about religion. That's rather well known, and there's a good reason for that. But we should know off the bat that atheism is not a new idea at all. In fact, the first time we see it appear is in the Psalms of the Hebrew Bible. The fool in his heart thinks there is no God. And we see atheists also in India, Ajita Kesakumbalan. We see atheism in Greece with Diagoras of Milos. We see it in China with Fan Zhen criticizing Buddhist superstitious beliefs in reincarnation, among many other things. But really, after this ancient period, we know atheism and agnosticism never caught on with the majority of humans on the planet. But if we think to the Enlightenment of Europe, as it's called, the Renaissance from the Dark Ages, this period of time where science is really taking off, then we see some notably famous atheists emerge onto the world historical scene. In the ancient period, people like Socrates or the Buddha or Lao Tzu of China, while not believing in a monotheos, like the Bible will tell us, did believe in otherworldly realities, for sure. But especially by the 19th century, we see some figures emerge to really rattle the cage of religion. Among these, maybe most notably, would be Karl Marx. And he thought, of course, religion was a means for oppressing the poor through religious dogma and even brainwashing to benefit the rich in society. It's not true that he sought to abolish religion like the later Soviet Union or even modern-day China attempts to do. He thought religion would just wither away as science took off. Of course, a little later on, at the turn of the 19th and 20th century, we see Tyler come along to tell us that, well, from his view and his friend Fraser's view, we can see evolution. The evolution Darwin discovered biologically, they saw with religion. And their view was that from early animistic, spirit-worshipping tribal religions, from there humankind's evolved into the beliefs of the great religions, as they're called, just because more people believe them, not because they're more correct than the tribal ones. And these great religions, as we saw in earlier units, all really start to appear in the middle of the first millennium before the Common Era, with notably Socrates, the Buddha, and Confucius, where the old superstitious beliefs of the ancient city-states were challenged in favor of unifying principles that could apply to pan-ethnic civilizations. So these great religions are a next stage in evolution for Fraser and Tyler, and the culmination of that evolution is with science. So they saw science as a next religion for human beings. Notably as well among our atheists is Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud, of course, thought that religious belief was a childhood dependency issue. A figure like God serves as a crutch for the weak-minded and those who didn't have good mothers or fathers. Friedrich Nietzsche is also another famous atheist, and of course his greatest view is that of the Overman, or sometimes called the Superman, the Übermensch. a person who could transcend culture and think for themselves and escape cultural brainwashing to create new things. It's notable, though, to realize that the most scientific perspective is not atheism. It is, in fact, agnosticism. T.H. Huxley coined the term in the 1880s to say, I don't know if there's a God or reincarnation or an afterlife, and neither do you. Atheism, on the other hand, is a real belief that there is no God, when, in fact, belief or non-belief in God is unfalsifiable, just as, if I told you about the unicorn I saw 2 weeks ago, we can neither prove nor disprove that I saw that unicorn. But, as has been said by many others, and I'll say it here too, science addresses the same questions that religions did. We can think about the creation of the world. Well, that's a big question for the religions, from the tribal on up to science. Science has its Big Bang. India has its primeval man dissolving himself to create the world. Ancient Sumer, not far off the mark, asserting that the world began with the emergence of a primordial mountain in the middle of a primordial sea. How unlike that is the Big Bang? We can see rituals in science and the old religions and the tribal religions. Rituals in religion, we can say, involve the Lord's Supper or a pilgrimage to Mecca. We can see holy sites in all three of these. Perhaps for the Christian faith, the Catholic side for sure, the Vatican serves as a sacred center, a holy site. For science, perhaps Cape Canaveral or the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. New sacred centers for this mega religion for the whole of humankind, transcending more than pan-ethnic empires, but really every human on the planet. And science has its saints. We can think of St. Augustine and the like. And for science, we could say the saints are people like Darwin, Einstein, Newton. And the search for understanding when will the world end. Science tells us that in about 5 billion years, the Earth will be engulfed by the sun as it expands to the very orbit of the Earth. For religion, well, the Christian one, for example, the world will end with the Earth engulfed in flames, lakes of fire and brimstone. Science seeks the arrival, even, of the perfect man. In Buddhism, they await the Bodhisattva Maitreya, who will come and establish peace on the planet. And he will be more than just a human being, but a consciousness that has expanded to transcend time and space, we could say, but certainly to manipulate matter and create a heavenly paradise on earth. Then in the case of science, I think it's fair to say, I myself and other science fans are awaiting the emergence of the cyborg, a person who is certainly superhuman compared to what we have been for, lo, these many millions of years. Science has its rituals and holidays in a sense. We can look at the Nobel Prize for Physics and all these other Nobel Prizes for the kind of awards and honors scientists seek. Just as in the Christian tradition we have the enthronement of popes or Dalai Lamas in Buddhism. So the features of science aren't that unfamiliar to all of us who've been raised, most of us, in some kind of religion. We know, whatever religion we believe in, that it answers those same questions. So I will hope the journey through our class has been valuable, and no more fitting place to end it than here in the realm of science.